Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Financial Advisors Want to Know podcast. I'm Catherine Tindall, a partner here at Dominion, which is a specialty tax and accounting firm for financial advisors. And on today's episode, I have with me Dr. Daniel Crosby. He's a psychologist and behavioral finance expert. He was educated at Brigham Young and Emory, and he explores the intersection of psychology and markets. He created the Irrationality Index to track market sentiment and recently released The Soul of Wealth, which is a book I'm really enjoying, featuring 50 insightful essays on wealth and happiness. In his free time, he enjoys independent films, the St. Louis Cardinals, baseball, and family time. So you've got a nice life balance between everything in life. So thanks for joining me today, Dr. Crosby.
Catherine, good to be with you.
So I've really been enjoying your book because I think it's one of those, just in general, a lot of the topics that are covered are things where in the conversations that I have with advisors, as that there are clients, it's a common conversation I have really early on in the relationships with them of just like, why are you doing all of this? Like I had an advisor in the other day where he's trying to grow his firm to be $1 billion AUM. And I asked him the question, like, why? Like, what's the end game for you? Like, what's the point? And it's amazing how hard people can work and not have that question answered in their own mind. So I'd love to just open up the conversation to, maybe some of your experiences with advisors looking at their own, it's one thing us as an advisor looking at clients and what's going on in clients' worlds, but like looking at our own motivations and maybe some of the pieces that can be missing for people that are so ambitious in life and trying to get things done and trying to move things forward, but maybe are missing some of the bigger picture pieces of life.
Yeah, it's a weird tendency of human nature to be very good at giving advice to others, but be very poor at taking our own advice. So I think there is a real cobbler's shoes mentality in every profession, but certainly among financial advisors. In some of my previous work that was more sort of analytical in nature, I looked at how advisors' portfolios did. And what we know is that advisors are extraordinary at helping their clients. I mean, this is well established. People who work with an advisor tend to do dramatically better than those who don't, both in a dollars and cents way and also in a number of sort of life wellness ways that we could talk about. But when you look at advisors' mistakes in their own portfolios, they're susceptible to all of the behavioral biases as the next person, right? One of the things I talk about in the book, in the chapter on the knowing doing gap, is nurses and smoking. Nurses smoke at nearly double the rate of the general population. And to a person, if you ask a nurse, like, hey, should you smoke cigarettes? They would tell you no. And yet, they have stressful jobs and they work long hours and thankless work. And so they smoke. So we as a profession are increasingly moving in the direction of helping our clients spend money in meaningful ways and think about wealth as more than dollars and cents. But I think we have to be careful to model that behavior ourselves. And I can attest firsthand that it doesn't always happen.
Yeah, no. And that's the challenge, because I think especially for advisors who are trying to build and grow firms, something that I've observed in myself, and I've heard others say the same things, is, as you're trying to build and scale and grow, you will find that all of the limitations you hit are just you, like that they're your own failings, that they're your own shortcomings, that they're your own vices. And I wonder for a lot of us if that, if you've seen that in experience in terms of people needing more help than they think, especially advisors like you needing more help on things than maybe you think you do, because you're able to be so capable for your clients, but can you be that same person for yourself?
Yeah, my buddy, Brad Johnson, who runs a firm that serves advisors, he talks about putting a mirror in his office that says problem identified under the mirror. And I think I think that's a good thing. And again, I talk in the book about one of the highest uses of money being to buy your freedom back, buy your time back, get out of work you hate. And yet I think as professionals go, well, I'll do it when, or, I'll
Yeah.
get to it later, or I'll keep taking this on. So we give our clients all sorts of good advice. I think we do need to take a step back, call ourselves on our own BS, our own disingenuousness sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and see where we may not be following our own advice, because it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I was joking with somebody the other day that, in terms of like trying to get fit and healthy, it's kind of the same thing. Like it's a lot of the same behaviors, and like, what to do, like, how to exercise, like, you shouldn't eat the stuff that you should, like, it's not really a knowledge gap a lot of the time. It's just having another person that's responsible for it besides you, or, building in those systems that prevent you from being your own worst enemy when it comes to actually achieving the things that you really want.
Yeah. So I have been on a journey this year. I've lost 60 pounds this year.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah, thank you. I started in April. I had a buddy, my gym buddy. I've worked out religiously for years, but was overweight still, even though I worked out, 7 days a week. And I have a buddy who's getting divorced and trying to get back in shape, is just turn his life around a bit. And he asked if I would join him, and I did, and it paid off. But it's been interesting to see, and when people see, I mean, sometimes I would have seen someone. I started April 1st. Like sometimes I would have seen someone in the spring, and then I'll see them in the fall, and it's like I look very different. And they'll go, what in the world? And they always assume something dramatic.
Mm,
They always assume that like you're taking medication, or like you're working out 4 hours a day, or something. Two things: a daily calorie deficit and a high protein number every day. I'm over a protein goal and under a calorie goal every day for whatever 6 or 7 months, and that is it. Like I've not changed my working out or anything. Everybody wants it to be some extraordinary thing. It's
yeah.
really the things that we know to do, but that we haven't gotten the support to do, or we haven't automated or made practices. I mean, my story is it's the most boring story in the world. I monitor what I eat, and I eat a lot of protein. Like that's it. That's the whole ball game.
Yeah. Well, it's like the trick is that there is no trick. Like
Yeah.
it's like the extraordinary thing is just the consistency. Like that's
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people, it's like you said, it's just building that support structure to get to what you want. And when you've been talking to, different advisors and people about your new book, are there common things that they bring up as, the biggest aha moments for them, or things that surprised them? Or
Yeah.
things that maybe surprised you the most when you were writing the book? Just a slight interruption in this conversation. I wanted to bring to your attention two things that are important for you to know. So, we're always at the mercy of social media algorithms. So, if you can subscribe to the show, that would mean a lot to me. Even more to me if you can leave a rating and let me know what you think about it. But we have a new newsletter that's coming out. It's going to be very active in 2025, that is specifically around tax issues that I'm seeing advisors face in their own practices, changes in legislations, and the pieces that I think are critically important for you to stay ahead of as an advisor with the new administration. So nearby, wherever you're interacting with this, will be the link of how to sign up for our newsletter. Also nearby will be the link to my LinkedIn, which is the best way to get in touch with me, learn more about what we're doing for advisors in the tax strategy and compliance work that we do, and also to get access to the various tools and interviews and things that I do, specifically designed to help you improve your practice, improve your own tax situation, etc. So let's get back to the episode, and thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, so there's a few things. There's a few things that I'm on my podcast tour, right? And so I've gotten to have this conversation a few times, and it's interesting to see what themes emerge.
Mm.
So here's a couple. Toward the end of the book, there's a chapter on women in investing. The name of I don't know if you're there yet, but the chapter is called "Listen to Women," and the chapter is all about how women are the ultimate behavioral investors, right? And so I go through all the research, biologically, women are better wired to invest than men are, sort of innately. Sociologically, we socialize women to be humble and thoughtful and contemplative, and we socialize men to be loud and brash and pound the table. Now, there's good and bad to both things, but in an investment context, it means that both biologically and sociologically, women are better equipped to do this, and women outperform men in investment groups, in retail settings, in professional settings, in hedge funds, just everywhere you look. Women are better than men at investing. And yet when you ask mixed groups that are 50% men and 50% women, only 9% of respondents think that women will invest better than men. So that's one that really seems to be sticking out to people, is just, this is not well publicized. I think that nobody believes, not even women, believe that women are sort of the ultimate investors. And that felt good to kind of unearth and get out in the world to share that sort of.
Yeah. That's I haven't hit that essay yet, but I'm going to find that very gratifying when I get there. But, it's funny that you say that, because that is something, that I think a lot about too, in terms of when you look at gender dynamics in the professional world, like how it's kind of this shifting sands of opinion. And then also, trying to look deeper at, I'm really interested in like personality types and things like that, and just how people are so differently cognitively wired from each other and how they experience life. So I always find it really interesting when you get into some of the actual data behind things, and you see trends like that, where it's like, oh, actually kind of goes with the previous thing we were saying of it's really just the extreme consistency is like where you actually get the performance. And I think like a lot of those traits that are probably why women on balance are doing better is, it probably has to do with some of those, those same instincts that are, I think, maybe more natural to women than to men. But yeah, any other like pieces that really stuck out to you when you were writing it that you weren't expecting, or things people have latched on that you thought were obvious but maybe are not so obvious to the rest of us?
Well, it's always good to have sort of your pet opinions confirmed. And so I'm a big believer in purpose. I'm a big believer in just like, operating with a why, keeping that why front and center, and incorporating that into every part of your day to day. I couldn't have anticipated how powerful that is in a financial setting, though. In the book, there's a couple of chapters that talk about this idea that your money needs a why or a purpose. But, Morningstar found that people with named accounts, so like Catherine's retired to the Bahamas fund, have 15.
How did you know?
I know. It was the outfit. It screamed island.
Get
island,
me a tropical drink.
Screamed, get me a tropical drink. Yeah. Yeah, but named accounts had 15% more wealth in them than non-named accounts. People in a panic, in a bear market, people were 10 times less likely to liquidate the Catherine to the Bahamas fund than they were, Catherine fund ABC 123, because it had been personalized. And they were also dramatically more likely to save. I shared research that people who look at a picture of in one study out of Canada, people who looked at a picture of their family before they made a financial decision were dramatically more likely to save and do the right thing than a control group. And it's just sort of recentering on purpose, like recentering. This isn't a video game, right? Like where the numbers go up and down, and this is money that serves real people that I love and brings about real values and visions that I have. And like, let's tie it back to that. So, a longtime Viktor Frankl devotee. So like pretty cool to see that this idea of purpose, which I think makes some sense to us in a general sense. It's not just woo woo. It's like it
Yeah.
actually has some power to it.
Yeah, and I find for a lot of, because I talk to a lot of firm owners where they're very ambitious people. They're very execution oriented. They're very, goal oriented in terms of, I want to hit this marker in the firm and I want to hit this AUM and things like that. And I realized like for a lot of them, for some people, when you say things like you have to have a purpose, like that's the most obvious thing in the world to them because of how they're wired, how they think about things. Like I have a friend who does like beautiful hand created, she's a seamstress, does these beautiful dresses and things. And for me to say something like that to her is so trite. She's like, obviously, like I've woven this into everything that I do.
Right.
But I think for people who are more on that hyper ambitious spectrum, that can be something where it's like, oh, that's a news flash. Like in some ways, like you don't realize that you're missing that because it's kind of a weaker part of how your mind operates and what you tend to lean into. So that's one of the reasons why I really enjoy your book so much, because it's something that I see a lot of people on the business side of things, like they actually need to hear these messages because they don't naturally lean into, some of these bigger picture questions, or really getting a little more philosophical about, the why behind what they're doing, or being holistic about it. So I guess for people who are interested in learning more about the book and your work, what are the best ways for people to learn more about the work that you're doing?
Yeah. The book is called The Soul of Wealth. It's 50 short essays on different topics around money, happiness, and meaning. Would love it if you'd go check that out. My work is through Orion. I work at Orion, and for advisors, they can go get free CE, whether or not they're a client, at the Orion Advisor Academy. So go check that out and come learn about behavioral finance for free.
Yeah, awesome. Two fantastic resources. And I can say as a fangirl of the book, you should go get it. It's a really great read. And the way it's structured is you can actually work your way through it. It's not like a tome.
Yeah.
And very, I really enjoyed the writing style that you have, and loaded with statistics, and just really great with taking a coffee break in the morning and working through an essay. It's really great structure of what you put together. So I want to thank you for coming on the show. Any final thoughts that you have for people listening in, or maybe things that they should be thinking about we didn't hit?
No, it's thank you for sharing your platform with me. And I guess, in closing, I think you've said it nicely. It's in a previous book I wrote about the neuroeconomics of how we value money as an end unto itself. Like we value money regardless of what it can buy for us, which is kind of irrational.
Yeah.
And that's why, AUM go up can become a goal,
Yeah.
right? And AUM go up is fine. Like, look, I hope everyone makes tons of money. I hope your AUM goes up and to the right forever. But that's necessary, but not sufficient, right?
Yeah.
And I think that this book gets to the heart of the matter and helps you think about money in a more complicated, nuanced, and human way. And I think we need more of that.
Yeah, no, that's great. Like just that emphasis of it's a means, not an end. And you really have to know the difference between those two things, because if you think it's the end, when you actually get to the AUM number that you want, like you're still going to be totally dissatisfied and it's going to be hollow. But just something I've seen with advisors that I've worked with, where they do get to the number, they do get to the sale, and they just feel empty. And it's because they've confused that very basic thing of means versus end. But thank you again so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And for those of you listening, go get the book. It's really good. You're really going to enjoy it. And I think it will, especially as an advisor, it's going to give you the context to have really great conversations with the clients in a way that I think in this age of, everybody's scared of AI, maybe nobody's scared of AI, maybe it's just me, really will help you develop that human connection with getting to the real core things of what's going on in their lives and for yourself. So thanks again for coming on the show. And for those of you listening, this was another episode of the Financial Advisors Want to Know podcast.